The strange encounter, the space station floated in silence. A giant wheel of metal turning slowly above the blue planet below. Thousands of travelers came and went through its shining halls every day. Merchants, soldiers, diplomats, and wanderers. From across the galaxy, for most of them, it was only a place of business, but for one human, it became the place where fate changed forever. His name was Daniel, an ordinary man. He was not a soldier, not a famous explorer, not even someone with power. He was just a cargo worker, delivering supplies from Earth to the station. He believed his life would always remain simple, carrying crates and logging shipments. But destiny had other plans for him. That morning began like any other. Daniel walked through the busy docking bay, pushing a small hover cart. The air smelled of oil, metal, and alien spices from faraway worlds. He passed tall insectoid traders clicking their mandibles, scaled lizard beings hissing to each other, and even machines walking like men. Daniel often felt small here, just one human among thousands of species that were stronger, smarter, or more advanced. He thought he was invisible. He thought nobody cared about him until he noticed her. She stood near the great hall of banners, where every nation and species displayed their colors. Her cloak was deep silver, flowing around her slim figure. Her face was hidden under a hood, but Daniel could sense her presence like a spark in the air. Something about her was different from everyone else. It was not her beauty, though he could already tell she was striking. It was something heavier, something powerful, something royal. Daniel should have kept walking. He should have ignored her and gone back to his work, but when their eyes met, even for a second, his feet refused to move. She looked at him, not like the others looked at humans, with pity or amusement, but with focus. As if she already knew him, the crowd shifted, and suddenly she stood in front of him. Daniel felt his throat tighten. He had never been this close to someone who radiated such mystery. She raised her hand slowly, her fingers slim, her skin faintly glowing with silver light. Without thinking, Daniel extended his hand too. It was a simple gesture, something humans did every day, a handshake. The moment their hands touched, everything changed. Daniel's vision exploded with fire and shadows. He saw burning cities under alien skies, ships torn apart in battle, and oceans turned red with war. He saw armies marching under banners he had never known. He heard voices calling his name in 1,000 tongues, and above it all, he saw her, the woman now standing before him crowned. In light, holding a blade of stars, the visions ended as suddenly as they began. Daniel gasped and pulled back his hand, his chest heavy, his pulse racing. What was that? He whispered, his voice trembling. The woman lowered her hood, and for the first time he saw her face. Her eyes were like twin moons, silver and glowing softly. Her features were sharp yet gentle, carrying both beauty and command. She was not just anyone, she was someone important. You should not have done that, she said quietly, her voice calm but filled with warning. Daniel stepped back, confused. I didn't mean to. It was only a handshake. Her lips curved into something between a smile and a sigh. For humans, perhaps, but for my kind. Touch is binding, sacred, unbreakable. Daniel blinked, not understanding. Her words made no sense to him, yet deep inside he felt the truth of them. The vision still burned behind his eyes. He had touched something far greater than himself, something that would not let go. Who are you? Daniel asked, his voice shaking. The woman glanced around, as if worried someone might hear. Then she leaned close and whispered, I am Princess Kalira of the Lithari, heir to the throne, and you. You are no longer free. Daniel froze. Her words fell on him like heavy chains. What could she mean? He was just a worker, a nobody. How could a handshake change his life? But the memory of fire and war still echoed in his mind. He wanted to deny it, to laugh it away, but deep inside, he knew his fate had shifted. He was caught in something far beyond his understanding. Princess Kalira straightened, her silver eyes glowing brighter. Now your destiny is tied to mine, she said, her voice steady. From this moment forward, you walk a path you cannot escape." Daniel's hands trembled as he whispered, "What happens now?" The princess looked at him for a long time before answering. "Now, human, your fate is sealed." The words struck him like a blade. He did not yet know what they meant, but he felt the weight of them around them. The space station continued as normal. Crowds moving, traders shouting, engines humming. No one saw, no one knew, that in the middle of that busy hall, a single handshake had just changed the course of two worlds forever. The alien princess revealed Daniel could not move. Her words still echoed in his mind. "I am Princess Kalira of the Lithari, heir to the throne." A princess, standing right before him, disguised in a cloak. Speaking as if their meeting was more than chance. He wanted to laugh, to deny it, to walk away and pretend none of this had happened. But the vision still burned in his head, and the weight of her eyes held him still. Kalira studied him quietly, as if measuring his soul. There was no mockery in her gaze, no arrogance of royalty. Instead, there was patience, almost sorrow, as if she knew what this moment meant for him. "You touched me," she said softly, "and in my world, such a touch binds us." Daniel frowned, his voice breaking. "It was only a handshake, I didn't know." Her lips pressed together. Humans never know, and yet, fate does not ask permission. Around them, the station bustled with noise. Merchants bargaining, guards patrolling, engines humming through the steel floor. No one seemed to notice the storm that had just formed between a human worker and an alien princess. Daniel felt small, lost, caught in something far greater than himself. "You said, 'I'm no longer free,'" he whispered. "What does that mean?" Kalira pulled her hood lower again, hiding her face from curious eyes. "It means you are part of a prophecy," she said, her voice barely above a breath. "My people believe in visions, in bonds that cross stars, in destiny written by ancient hands." Daniel shook his head. "That sounds like myths, stories for children." Her silver eyes flashed. "And yet you saw them, didn't you? Fire, war, the crown, the blade." Daniel's mouth went dry because he had seen them, too clearly to deny. For a moment he wanted to run, to leave her standing there with her strange words. But something deep inside him whispered that leaving was no longer an option. Curiosity, fear, and a strange pull kept him rooted where he stood. "What exactly do your people believe?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Kalira glanced around before leading him into a quiet passage, away from the crowds. Her cloak brushed against the floor as she walked, her movements fluid, graceful, as though she floated rather than stepped. When they were finally alone in the narrow corridor, she stopped and turned to him. "The Lithari Empire has existed for thousands of years," she began, her voice calm but heavy with history. "We are strong, but not invincible. And enemies press on us from all sides." Daniel listened, his heart racing. Unsure why she was telling him this, she lifted her hand, tracing invisible patterns in the air, symbols glowing faintly before fading. "In our oldest texts, there is a prophecy," she said, "that one from beyond, not of our blood, will join with the crown and alter the fate of two worlds." Daniel blinked, his breath caught in his throat. "Are you saying that's me?" Kalira's gaze did not waver. "The bond was made when you touched my hand. The visions you saw prove it. You are now tied to me, whether you wish it or not." Daniel laughed nervously, the sound too loud in the empty hall. "This is insane. I'm just a worker. I move crates. I can't even fix a broken engine without calling for help. And now you're telling me I'm in some alien prophecy?" Kalira tilted her head, her expression unreadable. "Perhaps it is madness, or perhaps fate chooses those who least expect it. Your kind is underestimated in this galaxy. Humans are called primitive, fragile, reckless. But I see something different." Her words struck him deeper than he wanted to admit. For years, Daniel had lived as if invisible, unnoticed in the crowd, and now this princess looked at him as if he was the center of something vast, something dangerous. He tried to step back, to protest again, But the memory of assassins from earlier flashed in Kalira's eyes. "There are those who would kill me for this bond," she said firmly. "They will come for you too, Daniel. Because now you are part of my fate." Daniel's stomach tightened, fear settling like ice. "Then break it," he said quickly. "Break this bond, whatever it is. I don't want it." Kalira's face softened, but her answer carried no comfort. "It cannot be undone, not by me, not by anyone. The path has begun, and we must walk it." Her words left him hollow, as if the ground beneath his feet had been pulled away. He wanted to scream that she was wrong, that she had chosen the wrong person. But something about her calm certainty silenced him. Daniel leaned against the cold wall, breathing hard, trying to understand how a simple handshake had turned his entire life upside down. The princess stepped closer, her voice gentle now. "I know this is heavy, but you must trust me. Your life is no longer just your own. Danger will come. Choices will be forced, and when the time comes, you will matter more than you believe." Daniel stared at her, words caught in his throat. For the first time, he noticed her eyes were not only silver, but also tired, burdened, as if she had carried this weight for far too long. And now, somehow, he was carrying it with her. In the distance, alarms echoed through the station, a muffled voice announcing security sweeps. Kalira pulled her hood tighter and whispered, "They are coming. We must go. If they find us here, it will already be too late." Daniel had no chance to argue, no chance to think. The princess grabbed his hand once more, pulling him into the shadows. This time, he did not resist, though his heart pounded in his chest like a war drum. Whatever path he had been forced onto, it had already begun, and deep down, a small voice whispered that life would never be simple again. The Secret War. The corridors of the station grew darker as Kalira pulled Daniel deeper into the restricted levels. The noises of the crowd faded behind them, replaced by the low hum of reactors and the hiss of ventilation pipes. Daniel's heart pounded, his breath sharp in his throat. He wanted to ask 100 questions, but the fear in Kalira's eyes kept him silent. At last, she stopped in front of a sealed door marked with alien symbols. Her hand glowed faintly as she pressed it to the panel, and the door slid open with a whisper of steel. Inside was a chamber unlike anything Daniel had ever seen. Holograms flickered above a round table, showing star systems, fleet formations, and burning worlds. It was not a meeting room, it was a war room. Daniel froze at the sight. Ships clashed in silent battles on the holographic map, explosions flashing in miniature. Troop movements glowed across entire planets, lines of red advancing against blue. Everywhere Daniel looked, it was war. War on a scale beyond anything he had imagined. Kalira turned to him, her hood falling back, her silver eyes sharp. "This is what I meant," she said, her voice heavy. "My people, the Lithari, are being hunted. We face extinction." Daniel swallowed hard, trying to understand. "By who?" he whispered. Kalira's face hardened. "By the dominion of Scythe, an empire that devours worlds. They believe the galaxy belongs to them, and anyone who resists is crushed." Daniel's mind spun. He had heard rumors of alien wars, but Earth was far, and humans were rarely included in such conflicts. "We tried to stay neutral," Kalira continued. "But neutrality means death. The Dominion will not stop. And soon they will reach your people as well." Daniel shook his head. "But humans? We're not part of this. Why would they care about us?" Kalira's eyes softened, but there was no comfort in her words. "Because humans are new, unpredictable, and the Dominion fears what it cannot control. You may think you are weak, but to them, you are dangerous simply because you are different." Daniel's stomach twisted, his hands trembling at the thought. He had always believed humans were ignored in the galaxy, too small, too unimportant. But now he realized being underestimated was both a shield and a curse. The Dominion would come eventually. And when they did, humanity would not be ready. Kalira turned back to the hologram, pointing at one of the glowing star systems. My people fight in secret. We strike from the shadows. We resist. But we cannot last forever. Our fleets are scattered. Our resources drained. And now." She looked at him, her gaze steady. "Now the prophecy speaks. It speaks of one from beyond. One who will turn the tide." Daniel stepped back, shaking his head. No, you can't mean me. I'm not a soldier. I'm not a leader. I'm just human," Kalira finished for him, her voice firm. "And that is why, Daniel, the prophecy may be true. Because humans do not follow the same rules as the others. Your kind is reckless, stubborn, and wild. The Dominion cannot predict you." Daniel's chest tightened. It sounded ridiculous, yet a small part of him remembered the assassins, remembered how he had reacted without thinking, how his instincts had saved them. Was that what she meant? Was that why fate had chosen him? Before he could speak, the holograms flickered red, alarms flashing across the war table. Kalira's eyes narrowed. "They found us," she whispered. "The Dominion's agents are here." The door behind them hissed as it sealed itself, heavy bolts sliding into place. Daniel's heart hammered as the war room darkened, the only light coming from the shifting red holograms. Kalira drew a slim blade from her cloak, its edge glowing faintly with alien energy. She looked at Daniel, her face calm despite the danger. "Do you see now? This war is not far. It is here. It is everywhere. And from the moment you touched my hand, you became part of it." The words hit him harder than any blow. He wanted to deny it, to walk away, but the sound of boots marching outside told him there was no escape. The Dominion was already here, hunting Kalira, hunting him, and deep inside, Daniel realized the truth. He could no longer pretend he was just a cargo worker. The galaxy was at war, and somehow he was standing at its center. Kalira raised her blade, her eyes flashing with silver fire. "Stand with me, Daniel," she said, "or be crushed with the rest. There is no middle path." Daniel's fists clenched, his body shaking. He had no training, no weapons, nothing but fear and instinct. But as the door began to shake under enemy hands, something inside him shifted. For the first time in his life, he felt the pull of destiny, heavy and unyielding. And though he was terrified, he whispered the only answer he could. "I'll stand." The princess's gaze softened, a faint smile touching her lips. "Then let the war begin," she said. And with those words, the chamber exploded into chaos as the Dominion broke through, and Daniel's simple life was shattered. Forever, tested by danger, the war room shuddered as the heavy doors buckled under the Dominion's assault. Metal groaned, sparks fell, and the air was filled with the sharp hiss of cutting torches. Daniel's heart raced, every beat loud in his ears. He had never faced battle, never held a weapon. Yet now death stood just beyond the door. Kalira lifted her glowing blade, the silver light painting her face with fire. She moved like a shadow given form. Steady, calm, unshaken, her voice cut through the chaos. "Stay behind me, Daniel. Their target is me. But if they take you alive, the bond makes you just as dangerous." Daniel swallowed hard, his fists clenched. "Dangerous? I can barely stand." The door exploded inward with a thunderous crash, metal shards flying like knives. Figures in black armor stormed through, their helmets faceless, their rifles humming with deadly energy. The Dominion assassins moved with brutal precision, every step silent, every aim perfect. Daniel froze, terror locking his body. But Kalira was already moving. Her blade slashed through the first soldier's rifle, sparks bursting as the weapon fell in two. She twisted, spun, and her silver cloak whipped like firelight. Each strike was fluid, each motion too fast for Daniel's eyes to follow. But for every assassin she struck down, two more advanced, their weapons raised toward her. Daniel's instincts screamed at him to hide, to curl into a corner, to survive. But something deep inside refused. The visions of burning cities, of war, of Kalira crowned in light flashed again in his mind. And suddenly he was moving, without plan, without thought, only raw human instinct. grabbed the edge of the hologram table and slammed it forward. The heavy console toppled into two assassins, pinning them with a crash. Their rifles clattered to the floor, and Daniel lunged, grabbing one with shaking hands. He had never fired an alien weapon before, but his fingers found the trigger. A burst of energy screamed across the room, striking the wall in a wild spray. It was clumsy, reckless, but it forced the assassins to scatter. Kalira glanced at him, her silver eyes flashing with something between shock and approval. Daniel felt no pride, only fear, his hands trembling as he fired again. This time the shot struck an assassin square in the chest, sending the figure crashing backward in a burst of sparks. Daniel gasped, his stomach twisting, but there was no time to think. One of the assassins lunged at him with a blade. Daniel barely had time to lift the rifle. The enemy slammed into him, and both tumbled to the ground. The weapon skidded away, sparks flying as it slid under the table. The assassin's helmet loomed over him, dark and cold. Daniel thrashed, punching wildly, human fury and panic mixing into raw survival. He slammed his forehead into the faceless mask, the crack echoing in his skull. The assassin reeled back, stunned, and Daniel's hand found a loose pipe on the floor. With a desperate yell, he swung it hard, the blow ringing out like a hammer on steel. The assassin collapsed, unmoving. Daniel gasped for air, his chest burning, his arms shaking with shock. He had never fought for his life before, but now he had, and he had survived. Kalira cut through the last soldier with a graceful arc, her blade dimming as the chamber fell silent. The floor was littered with smoking armor and shattered weapons. The war room no longer looked like a place of strategy, but a battlefield. Daniel staggered to his feet, clutching the pipe like a lifeline. His face was pale, sweat dripping down his brow. I don't know what I'm doing," he stammered. Kalira stepped closer, her expression calm but her eyes bright with fire. "You fought with instinct, not training. That is what makes you dangerous." "Daniel, that is what they cannot predict." Daniel shook his head, his voice breaking. "I was terrified. I wasn't brave. Kalira interrupted, her voice firm. "Courage is not the absence of fear. It is standing when fear says run. And you stood, Daniel. You stood when others would have fallen." Her words sank deep, heavier than any weapon. Daniel wanted to deny it, to call himself lucky, but the truth echoed inside him. He had fought, and somehow he had survived. He had faced assassins meant for trained warriors, and lived Kalira's blade dimmed fully now, sliding back into her cloak. She looked at him with something almost like respect. "You see now why the bond cannot be ignored, why the prophecy chose you," she said softly. Daniel looked around at the broken assassins, his voice barely a whisper. "They'll send more, won't they?" Kalira nodded, her expression grave. "They will not stop, not until one of us is gone. But you are not alone anymore, Daniel. Together we fight." For the first time since their meeting, Daniel did not argue. He looked at his trembling hands, at the bent pipe still clutched tight. He had never wanted war, never wanted destiny. But destiny had found him, and it would not let go. The alarms still wailed through the station. More soldiers would come, more danger, more choices. And as Kalira placed a steady hand on his shoulder, Daniel realized something terrifying. He was no longer the man he had been when this day began. The galaxy had tested him, and though he shook with fear, he had not broken. He was human, and that was enough. For now, the prophecy's burden, the war room was silent now, except for the faint crackle of broken wires and the steady hum of the hologram still flickering in red. Smoke curled from the wreckage of the battle, the smell of burnt metal and scorched armor heavy in the air. Daniel sat on the floor, his back against the wall, his chest rising and falling like he had run a marathon. The bent pipe still rested in his hands. His only proof that he had fought, his only proof that he had not died. Kalira stood near the war table, her cloak torn, her blade dimmed. She looked at the holograms with eyes that carried centuries of weight. as if she could see far beyond. The glowing maps far beyond even this war. Daniel wanted to speak, to demand answers, to demand freedom. But his voice felt trapped in his throat, and all he could manage was a whisper. Why me? Kalira turned, her silver eyes soft yet steady. Because fate does not always choose the strongest, nor the wisest, nor the prepared, she said quietly. Sometimes it chooses the one who does not expect it, because only they can change. The story, Daniel shook his head, his voice bitter. I'm no hero, I'm no soldier, I shouldn't even be here. Kalira's gaze did not waver. And yet you are. She walked to the far side of the chamber, where a small panel opened, to reveal a smooth black stone. Strange symbols glowed faintly across its surface, ancient marks carved long before either of them was born. Kalira touched it with her hand, and the hologram shifted, showing not ships or battles now, but visions. Daniel saw stars being born, galaxies turning like wheels of fire, and then a figure, faceless but human, standing beside a crown of silver light. The figure held nothing but empty hands, yet entire empires bowed before him. This is our oldest record, Kalira said, her voice almost reverent. It tells of the bond of stars, a meeting across bloodlines, a single touch that binds two fates, one of the crown and one of the stranger. Together they will stand against the storm. Daniel stared at the vision, his mouth dry. That's me, that's what I saw. Kalira nodded slowly. It is why the visions came to you, why the assassins came so quickly. You are not just caught in this war. You are part of the prophecy itself. Daniel buried his face in his hands, his voice cracking. I can't carry this. I can't be whatever that vision says. I'm not a chosen one. I'm not a leader. I'm just a man who moves crates. Kalira knelt in front of him, her voice gentle now. Do you think I wanted this? To be a princess bound by blood and throne? To be hunted from the moment I was born? Prophecies are not gifts, Daniel. They are burdens, heavy and cruel. But we do not choose them. They choose us. Her words struck him, not because they comforted him, but because he realized she carried the same chains. He looked at her, and for the first time he saw not a mysterious alien princess, but a woman trapped by destiny, just as he was now. Do you believe it? Daniel asked, his voice low. Do you believe the prophecy is real? Kalira's eyes flickered, her answer slower, heavier. I believe in choice, Daniel, but I also believe that stories shape us, whether we want them to or not. The prophecy does not promise victory. It only promises that together we will matter, Daniel. Leaned back, the weight pressing harder on his chest. Together we will matter. He thought of Earth, of home, of his small apartment filled with old books and broken tools. It felt like another life now, distant and fragile, as if it belonged to someone else. He whispered, almost to himself. If I matter, then so does everyone else, doesn't it? Humanity too. Kalira nodded, her voice steady. That is why the Dominion fears you. They call humans primitive, but they do not understand you. They cannot predict you, and what they cannot predict, they cannot control. Daniel exhaled slowly, his hands shaking. For the first time, he understood the danger, not just for himself, but for his entire species. The Dominion would come for Earth, and if humans were not ready, they would be swept aside like dust. He felt anger rise in him, hot and sharp. Anger at the Dominion, anger at the prophecy, anger at fate itself. But beneath the anger, a strange fire stirred. It was not courage yet, not strength, but the spark of something he had never felt before. Purpose. Maybe he had not chosen this, but it had chosen him, and if that was true, he could not turn away. Kalira watched him quietly, her eyes softening. You feel it now, she said gently. The weight, the burden, it is heavy, but it will shape you. Daniel met her gaze, his voice rough but steady. I don't know if I can be what they expect, but I know I can't run, not anymore. Kalira placed her hand over his, the glow of her touch faint but warm. then you are already stronger than you believe. She whispered. For a moment, the war room was silent, the alarms distant, the danger outside forgotten. It was only the two of them, bound by touch, by fate, by a story older than both their worlds. And in that quiet moment, Daniel finally understood. The prophecy was not a promise of glory, but a warning of sacrifice. He was no hero, not yet, but he was no longer just a man either. He was the bearer of a burden that could change the fate of two worlds, and whether he liked it or not, he would carry it. The last choice. The stars outside the station burned red with war. Through the great viewing window, Daniel saw fleets clashing. In the endless dark, massive ships fired beams of fire across the void. Explosions lit up the black like newborn suns. Every blast shook the station walls. Every tremor reminded him that death was no longer far away. The Dominion had come, not just assassins this time, but warships, enough to crush the Lithari fleet that had gathered in secret near the station. Kalira stood beside him, her silver eyes fixed on the battle, her cloak torn but her face calm. Daniel could see the burden in her gaze, the weight of command, the weight of lives depending on her. Alarms echoed through the corridors, voices shouted in dozens of languages. Refugees scrambled to escape, soldiers rushed to defensive posts. Children cried as their parents dragged them toward evacuation shuttles. The air itself seemed filled with fear, sharp and choking. Daniel clenched his fists, feeling smaller than ever before. Kalira touched his arm, her voice steady but quiet. This is the hour, Daniel. The prophecy speaks of a moment when the bond will be tested, when choice will shape the stars. That moment is now. Daniel turned to her, his voice breaking. I can't lead fleets. I can't win battles. I'm just one man. Kalira nodded. Yes, but one man who sees differently. One man who can act where others hesitate. The war outside grew worse. Dominion cruisers tore through the Lithari lines, their precision brutal, their numbers endless. The holograms in the war room showed blue symbols flickering out, each one a destroyed ally, each one a loss that cut Kalira deeper. Daniel felt anger twist inside him, anger at the Dominion, at the prophecy, at fate itself. He wanted to act, but fear still chained him. Then the chamber door opened and a Lithari commander stormed in. His armor scorched, his face set in grim lines. Princess, we are surrounded, he said, his voice sharp. The Dominion will overrun us within the hour. We must retreat now. Abandon the station and flee to safer space. Kalira's jaw tightened. If we retreat, the Dominion will slaughter those still evacuating. The civilians will be left to die. The commander's eyes narrowed. Better a few than all, Your Highness. We cannot waste our fleet on hopeless defense. Daniel listened, the words burning in his ears. Hopeless defense. That was what they all thought. That resistance against the Dominion was pointless. That survival meant retreat. But in his mind, Daniel remembered Earth, the stubbornness of his people. How humans never gave up even when the odds were impossible. He remembered Kalira's words. That courage was standing when fear screamed to run. The commander turned toward him with cold disdain. And this human? Why is he even here? He is no warrior, no leader. He is nothing. Daniel's fists clenched, shame and fury battling inside him. Maybe the commander was right. Maybe he was nothing. But maybe being nothing was exactly why the Dominion would never see him coming. He took a step forward, his voice rough but steady. What if retreat isn't the only choice? Both Kalira and the commander looked at him, surprised. Daniel swallowed, forcing the words out. The Dominion expects you to fight their way, fleet against fleet, power against power. But humans, we don't fight like that. We fight dirty, we fight clever. We use what we have, even if it's scraps. Kalira's eyes narrowed, a spark of hope flickering. What do you suggest? She asked. Daniel glanced at the hologram, at the massive Dominion fleet tightening its net around the station. They're focused on crushing the warships. They're not watching the debris field behind them. If we plant charges there and detonate at the right moment, the explosion could blind their sensors, confuse their formation, even give your fleet a chance to strike back. The commander scoffed. Madness, reckless human madness, it would never work. Daniel stepped closer, his voice sharp. Maybe, but it's better than running. If you flee now, you lose everything. If you fight smart, you might just survive. Silence hung heavy, broken only by the rumble of distant explosions. Kalira studied him, her silver eyes locked on his. Finally she nodded, her voice quiet but firm. The prophecy spoke of one who would change the way of battle, not with strength, but with choice. Perhaps this is it. The commander opened his mouth to argue, but Kalira raised her hand, silencing him. Prepare the charges, she ordered. We will strike as the human says. Daniel's chest tightened, the weight of his words pressing down on him. This was no longer just talk, this was action, and lives would be won or lost because of him. As the orders spread through the fleet, Kalira stepped closer, her voice low. You see now, Daniel, the prophecy does not mean leading armies with a crown. It means daring to choose when no one else will. This is your burden and your power. Daniel exhaled slowly, fear still clawing at him, but beneath it burned something stronger, resolve. The station shook again as another explosion lit the stars. Daniel looked out at the endless war, his reflection faint in the glass beside Kalira's. He whispered to himself, barely audible, this is it, no turning back. And as the fleet prepared for one last desperate strike, Daniel knew the truth. The prophecy was not about destiny forcing his hand. It was about choice, his choice, made here, made now. And whatever the cost, he would not run. Asterisk, a fate forever changed. The stars outside were fire. The Lithari fleet, broken and battered, rushed to follow Daniel's reckless plan. Small ships scattered into the debris field, planting charges on shattered hulls and drifting wreckage. The Dominion cruisers, proud and merciless, pressed forward, confident in their victory. They did not see the trap, not yet. Daniel stood at the war table, his hands trembling as he watched the hologram flicker. Every blue symbol was a Lithari ship, every red symbol a Dominion monster ready to swallow them whole. Kalira stood beside him, calm, unshaken, her silver eyes fixed on the map. She trusted him, trusted his insane idea, and that trust burned heavier than any chain. The station rocked with another blast. Sparks rained from the ceiling. A voice shouted over comms. Charges planted, ready to detonate on your word, Daniels. Throat went dry. This was it. No more time to doubt, no more time to run. He looked at Kalira, her gaze steady. Do it, she said, her voice soft but strong. Daniel pressed the control, and the void lit with fire. The debris field erupted, a storm of explosions ripping through the silent dark. Blinding flashes tore across the Dominion fleet, their sensors drowned in light and radiation. The cruisers faltered, their perfect formation shattering, and in that moment of chaos the Lithari struck. Blue symbols surged across the hologram, ships diving into the gaps, firing with everything they had left. The Dominion, caught off guard, reeled under the sudden counterattack. For the first time in centuries, their ships bled, their lines broke. The war shifted, not in victory, but in survival. Survival carved out by desperation and human recklessness. Daniel's chest tightened as he watched, hope flaring for the first time. But then the commander returned, his armor scorched, his eyes cold. Your Highness, we cannot hold, even with this trick. We will fall unless we retreat now. Kalira shook her head. If we retreat now, the Dominion will regroup. The civilians will be slaughtered. The commander's lip curled. Better them than the crown. Daniel's blood froze. The tone, the words, there was no loyalty in them, only betrayal. And then he saw it, the faint glow of a hidden beacon clutched in the commander's hand. It pulsed once, twice, sending signals into the void. The Dominion's backup fleet, waiting in the shadows, called to strike. Kalira's eyes widened, betrayal burning in her gaze. You, she whispered, her voice like ice. "You sold us." The commander's face was stone. "Survival demands." "Sacrifice, princess. Better to kneel than be ash. Better to live under the dominion than die with fools." Daniel moved before Kalira could. Rage boiling in his chest, he lunged, slamming the commander against the wall the beacon fell from. His hand clattering across the floor, the commander snarled, striking back, but Daniel held on, fists fueled by fury. He was no soldier, no warrior, but he was human, and humans did not surrender. Kalira's blade flashed, swift and final. The commander gasped once, then fell silent, his betrayal ended. In a single strike, the beacon cracked under Daniel's boot, sparks sputtering as it died. Silence followed, heavy and sharp. Daniel's chest heaved, his knuckles bloodied. But his eyes burned with fire. Kalira placed a hand on his shoulder, her voice low. "You see now, Daniel, why the prophecy spoke of you. Not because you were chosen by crown or birth, but because you refused to bend when others broke, because you fought when others betrayed." Daniel swallowed hard, his voice raw. "I don't feel like a hero." Her eyes softened. "Heroes rarely do." The hologram still burned with red. The Dominion fleet regrouping, the Lithari fleet battered. The civilians still fleeing. The battle was not won, not truly, but something greater had happened. For the first time, the Dominion had been forced back, their certainty shattered, and at the heart of it was a human who had shaken the stars with a choice. Daniel stared out the window, watching the fire spread across the void. He thought of Earth, of his people who did not even know this war was coming. He thought of Kalira, of the bond that had begun with a simple handshake. And he thought of the prophecy, not as a curse anymore, but as a path he could walk. The weight was still there, heavy and unyielding, but it no longer felt like chains, it felt like armor. He was not just a cargo worker anymore, not just a man, moving crates in silence. He was something more, something fate itself could not have predicted. He was human, and he would fight. Kalira's voice broke the silence, calm and steady. "With one touch, you changed not only my fate, but the fate of two worlds." Daniel nodded slowly, his voice quiet but sure. "And this is only the beginning." Outside, the stars burned with fire. The war was far from over. But Daniel's path was clear. He was no longer invisible, no longer nothing. A simple handshake had made him part of a story that would echo across the galaxy forever, and from that moment on, his fate was never his own.